here we are in Singapore at Changi Airport. There are orchids everywhere. If you really want to get around fast, you get on one of these travelators and disappear. After walking Singapore Airport for about 5 hours, we were ready to get on the plane again for Kuala Lumpur. On a tour of Kuala Lumpur with a guide and a bus, and we have now come to the birthplace of Kuala Lumpur, which is at the joining place of two rivers. This is the mosque that was built on the site. Non-believers are not allowed into the mosque, and they have impure thoughts. And on Fridays even the women are not allowed in case the men have impure thoughts. Kuala Lumpur means muddy estuary, and this is one of the two rivers that gives it its name, the point where the two rivers meet. Independence Square or Madaka Square, and this is where they celebrate their independence. The building you're seeing now was originally the British Administration building. It's now used as the High Court. In the cricket club and the cricket grounds. Underneath the parking bays, under that hill in the background are restaurants. It's all been built on, but the landscape has remained the same. Railway station. The railway station is rather different from the norm. Right opposite the Railway Administration Centre. That's the older older to the King's Palace in Kuala Lumpur. They don't have a king as such. They have 9 states, and the kings take it in turn to be chosen from the heads of one of those 9 states, and they live here for 5 years. The locals in the hedge at the guard entrance. The guards are replaced every hour. We visited the Royal Selangor pewter factory this morning and saw the whole process. They've got a huge pewter beer tankard outside, weighs 1.5 tons, and it was done for the Guinness Book of Records. And it's since been used for fundraising. And we were treated to a tour through a local house. Rather better than a lot that we've seen. This would be where a wedding was held. 272 steps up to the temples in the Batu Caves. And away we go. We've got 40 minutes to get back to the bus. This is a view from halfway up. all kinds of shrines at the entrance. You find there's another lot of steps there with some of the local white livestock. A different view as we come down. Look at all the pigeons in the square there. This is inside that same temple. Towards Malacca. Stopped at a fruit stall. There's round U-turns, $2.50 or of their $1.50 per kilogram. That's about just over $1 Australian. Streets of old Malacca. This is the mouth of the Malacca River, and these boats belong to Indonesians. They bring mangrove wood to Malaysia to be traded for sugar and spices, which they take back to Indonesia and resell. The owner of, or the buyer of all the mangrove wood here supplies them with the sugar and spices. They don't get paid in cash. They live on their boats, they are their home, and they just live on them full time. In the background is a replica that's being built of one of the Portuguese boats that brought the first Portuguese out to Malacca in about 1500. These are some of the piles of mangrove wood. Malaysia has almost exploited the amount of mango that they can cut. They've found that the sea is now encroaching on their land because they've cut too much, and that's why they're importing it from Indonesia. This is at a Chinese temple, and I didn't like to film inside it where they're all very pious and praying. This is outside. They burn their joss and bow in front of these altars. We were let out of the bus to have a walk down here through the antique and curio shops. This is the first building that the Dutch built here in 1650. It was their administration offices when they took it over from the Portuguese. 100 years later they built the church because before that they used the old Portuguese church. Another view of the Dutch administration building. Malacca into a historical city, and because there's nowhere to expand at all, they are reclaiming the sea, and all the land, the flat land you can see beyond these two old buildings which are being renovated to be turned into more museums, all that other flat land is unreclaimed land. Beside the ruins of the old church, you can see across to the modern section of Malacca. You see the extent of some of the reclamation of the sea. Very hard to get a shot, but there on top of the hill are the ruins of the old church of St. Francis Xavier.
Excuse me, madam. Excuse me.
You're supposed to pay $1 to take a photograph if you don't ride. There's markets everywhere, and these decorated bikes to take you for a ride as well. Business is slow. If you've heard of the Straits of Malacca, that's what they look like. Pollution plus. And this is the Portuguese influence, this is their sector. The hotel, we had a feed. This is jackfruit.
Thank you.
These are rambutans. Juicy and taste very like cheese. And these are mangosteens and delicious. The segments like an orange. Of the exterior lift in our hotel. A lot of construction going on all round Kuala Lumpur. Well, the pool at the hotel now. And our room is one of those. And down on the pool terrace you can see the two areas of construction. This is the lot that's outside our bedroom window, and then you've got a bit of a roadway along the side of the hotel, and then across the road there is the one that we saw from the left. Traffic here just never stops. It's incredible. The number of people that there are here is just hard to believe. Oh, we're just going into the orchid gardens. Admission free. That, I think, means bird park. If it doesn't, I'm in the wrong place. Don't move very fast, do they?
No, I think that one over there, he's resting his shell on the rocks and his feet and everything are off. Looks like
Which
he's
one?
marooned. Oh, just here.
Oh, that one.
You see, his feet sticking out the back.
That little one down there, who's just cute? Why is that baby one? Oh. It's the what one? Where's it all?
First off, double-decker bus ride seemed the right thing to do. This is Marble Arch. Back in London now, I'm waiting in the queue to get into the Tower of London.
We're here. Yeah, let's go downstairs. Yeah.
There's a legend about the royal ravens at the Tower of London. If they ever leave, the monarchy will fall. So the beefeater reckons that their wings are clipped and they're very well fed. This is the chapel where the headless bodies of all the traitors who were beheaded on the village green were brought back to, and they were unceremoniously dumped underneath the flagstones on the floor of the chapel. Queen Victoria ordered them to be dug up and given a decent funeral when she took to the throne, and they found the remains of 1,500 bodies under there. Only about 30 of them they could identify. This part is known as the Waterloo Block, which houses the crown jewels in one of those centre towers. This is part of the old Roman city wall, which was built towards the end of the 1st century. Another section of old wall. And we'll go for a walk along the outer wall. Interested in the old cannons that are around. From up on the wall at the Tower of London, you get a good view of the Tower Bridge.
Oh, la belle photo aussi.
Lo prendi? Così la... Così.
So right at home. Guards are. At least we think it is. There to the side of it is the Admiralty. Heading towards Trafalgar Square now. All sorts of things you see on the way. There we are, Nelson's Column. That's just for a lamp standard. The base of Nelson's Column is guarded by 4 lions. All sorts of detail on the base of it. Of course the pigeons are well known. With the lion's face on. It's beautiful. This is Westminster Abbey. It's massive. It's absolutely huge. As you would expect, there's no photography allowed in the Abbey. Clock on Westminster Abbey was only 1 p.m. This is Charing Cross. The column in front of it. Looking to the right is Admiralty Arch. The parish church of St Martin in the Fields. Very narrow lane, it's hard to get a decent shot of. Free house means that they're allowed to sell any liquor, they're not allied to any one food liquor chain. Nell was born and raised in this locality and sold fruit in Covent Garden before gaining fame as an actress on the Drury Lane stage. Samuel Pepys, the diarist, described seeing the mighty pretty Nell on his way to the Strand in 1667 with the Covent Garden market. This is just one hall, lower level, one section, another hall, and another.
Right, okay. How can you produce a original position there, Will? Not made of a good right foot. So, Will, your right foot underneath that side of the wheel, Graham, your right foot underneath this side of the wheel, right? The start these days, really. Okay, guys, we're going to make it a bit slower now, so you decided to let go for some reason. I'm going to get on with it, I'm going to just take it. Oh, jeez! Okay, we're nearly there. I don't know if this bloody far before us. Okay, guys, can you move your feet now? Not your hands, just your feet, yeah? Hand, move your foot. Good. Sorry, when you're away. Down to the seat here. Right. Okay, here we go. A two! No! You're lifting up!
Balancing,
Sorry. 1, 2, 3, let go! Run! Don't panic!
Leo?
Before we try and jump on the fire, can we please have an enormous...
23, the Tikanoa is going to come out after all. Go for a walk along towards Drury Lane. Very unassuming. Both ways to Cleopatra's Needle. Don't you just love these lampposts? These two sphinxes up to guard Cleopatra's Needle. They got their back to any oncoming danger. They're facing the needle. But they decided to leave it there anyway. Obviously the locals put it to much better use. It's like a comfortable bed. Damage on the side of the pedestal has been caused by a bomb that went off during the 1418 war. Natural History Museum is magnificent. Very impressive centre collection too. Imagine 4 of these, one on each corner. We're in Oxford Street actually, shopping. London Palladium. At the moment it's showing Oliver, a live show. This is Selfridges. I can't get all of it in, but takes up the whole block. Notice the very discreet signs on the windows, sale now on. Falls Cathedral. This is the Duke of Wellington's memorial. The font, made of Carrara marble. Of course, designed by Sir Christopher Wren, and this is how he left the ceiling, plain with carved stone circles against the white plaster. 150 years later, somebody else decorated the front part of the ceiling with glass mosaics up to the altar. There's more just down below the dome. We go all the way around. Directly under the dome in the centre is this epitaph to Sir Christopher Wren, and part of it in Latin reads, "If you want a monument to me, look around you." This is the choir. All beautifully carved wood. Part of the organ is on both sides. This is a picture inside. The altar is comparatively new. The area was hit by a bomb during the Second World War, and this was replaced after it. But from sketches that were created by Christopher Wren. Part of it is a memorial to the war, and it's made of Italian marble. All of this area behind the altar is dedicated to the 28,000 American soldiers who died in England during the war. And the 3 stained glass windows were put in after the war. They dedicate this one, the third one, is Resurrection. The second one is Sacrifice, is Service. Which are all symbolic to war. Florence Nightingale, Lord Nelson, some really glorious things in the treasury. This is a cape illustrating all the churches in the diocese. Made by embroidery students in 1977. This is Richard John Seddon, who was Prime Minister of New Zealand. Also memorials to Hughes and Daly from Australia. And of course, being me, I had to walk the 530 steps to the dome. However, all the steps weren't that shallow. They got worse. between the inner dome and the outer dome. This is looking straight down, central point of the concept. And there is London. Follow down the Thames. Of course, there's just as much more of it on the other side. And this shows the other end of the church, the cathedral, by the west door. I'm out at Kew Gardens at the moment. Now, I didn't realise that it's mainly park ground, not very much in the way of gardens. That's the Palm House over there. Bird life's interesting though. By train on Tuesday down to Portsmouth. We're just waiting to go on board, but there's no cameras to be used on board the ship. While we're on board the HMS Warrior, having a look at that, that was a sort of a combination boat. It was sailing and steam. When they were under sail, they used to retract the funnels. While we were on it, having a look over it, a P&O cruise liner set sail. It's just coming out from behind that American warship. Back on the Warrior. So what should be harder, steering the thing or keeping the brass polished? I must have kept it well polished. Because they reckon the Princess is much pleased. All very topical, even down to the proprietor's name. Wouldn't that have been fabulous under full sail? This is the officers' saloon.
Oh, these are hot. Oh, look at that. It's a hot saloon. Wow, look. Mum, that's like our fireplace.
Most of this is original.
Don't forget only the captain lives like this.
First mate in his cabin. The steps are well finished. And coops of chickens to vary the diet. The whole of the Tattoo today is a museum of figureheads from other sailing ships, all been restored. Just at the end of the dock, they've named the pub the Gypsy Moth. Got a foot in each hemisphere.
Nations in the world, in fact they call it the
5-1 every day, the ball rises halfway. England's time is an hour ahead of Greenwich Mean Time. 2 minutes till it goes the rest of the way. And on the hour tops. We're in Hyde Park at the moment. In the middle of Hyde Park, right in the centre of London. Big birds. We just well, we got out of London this morning after making 3 stops to pick people up and headed out on the highway west, past Windsor Castle. Didn't get a chance to take any shots of that, and we had our first comfort stop at a little place called Welcome Break, which is quite welcome. Rest, we're back on the coach again for the next leg of our trip. lots of these mounds around. They're burial mounds of some kind, and they extend for miles. Lots of them dotted around. This is Salisbury Cathedral. The cathedral was started in 1220, and the main body of it was finished about 1280. This is the mechanism that works the clock. Uses weights. The nighttime stop is at Exeter. We've just found our rooms and had a cup of coffee, and we're going to have a look at the little village. There's a little bit of the roof of a thatched cottage. We've seen lots of them today, but never been able to film them because of the bus. These stone cottages are quite common too. Couldn't miss the pub. Another example of thatched roofs. See the design just down from the ridge? That's what they call the thatcher's signature. They all have a different design.
Changing light bulb.
Just trying to remember the Irish joke about
And these are the Plymouth steps where the Pilgrim Fathers left from to sail to the New World. This is the harbour. Plymouth Hoe over there in the centre, which is that rocky outcrop, and that's where Sir Francis Drake was playing his game of bowls when the Spanish Armada was approaching, and he carried on playing bowls because he knew that the tide would not allow them to come in. Most of Plymouth has been rebuilt since the 50s. There were over 6,500 bombs dropped on it during the Second World War, and the majority of it was wiped out, so all that area has been rebuilt on. From there, it sailed for. The contribution to the colony's development, particularly in mining and farming, is acknowledged with pride by the Cornice Association of South Australia.
This plaque commemorates the sailing of the 6 Plymouth Company vessels carrying settlers from Cornwall, Devon and Dorset before establishing settlement of New Plymouth colony in New Zealand.
On over the Tamar Bridge from Devon into Cornwall. Clay mining for porcelain and kaolin, calamine lotion, that type of thing. The gorse and blackberry hedges actually stay confined here. It doesn't spread into the pasture like it does in New Zealand. Obviously a good potato growing area. One for wind farms up here on the Cornish coast. On St Michael's Mount. There is a causeway across to the mainland at low tide. At the moment the tide's fairly high. We're down on the south coast at the moment, and the town you see in the background across the bay there is Penzance. wet all day today, except down here at Land's End, right on the point, is this thick fog. But this is right on the toe of England, as far as you can go. Last couple of miles we've been running across the last pub, the last shop, the last inn. Hear the foghorn? We're just going to get a little minibus down to the harbour and have a Cornish pasty for lunch. The seagulls are huge. Talk about scavengers. I just swiped an ice cream out of that guy's hand. Here's another shot of St Ives on the Cornish coast. Flower decorations are very pretty. This is part of Jamaica Inn, setting for Daphne du Maurier's story of the same name. This is the view from our bedroom window in the hotel at Linton. This is overlooking the Bristol Channel. The hotel itself reminds you very much of Fawlty Towers. It's a magnificent place, but there are very odd stories of the supernatural. Another little town down at the bottom. What we could see from our bedroom window. I didn't suspect that there was a town like this down here though. Golden Hind restaurant, upstairs, downstairs. Gorgeous little church. All at Lynmouth, which is the mouth of the Lyn River. Flooded in 1952 and devastated the whole area. Took 10 years before it was all opened up again, rebuilt. This place is just so beautiful, you really can't believe what you're seeing. Take a look at this, Rising Sun Hotel, 14th century. Thatched roof. And look at the little birds on the roof. They are what they call the signature of the thatcher. This is Tintagel, and it thrives on the legend of King Arthur. Fun gallery. Pisky is the local fairy folk. So there's the Pisky shop. Here's a nice clean example of the rock walls that are around here. When I say clean example, the ones that serve as fences on the farms are all covered in growth, so you only get an occasional glimpse of the wall that's holding up this what appears to be a hedge. There's no fences as such, it's all walls everywhere that we've travelled in the last couple of days. The paddocks are all divided by walls like this. And the Cornishman pub, family pub. These are supposed to be the ruins of King Arthur's castle. This is the modern version, which is a hotel. Our bus is parked right in the way. That is what we're walking down to.
Brooke!
The cobblestone footpaths. Interesting little tea shop, but a more interesting notice by the door. This is known as the yarn market, and it's where people used to sell their excess textiles years ago. was built in 1609, so you can see that the display shelves there on the little hatches are fairly worn.
Up to here, but this is the Royal Crescent. We'll get a much closer view of the circus because we can actually drive round that still, although you will see that people in there have got signs up in their windows calling for too noisy. The park is named after Queen Victoria. She was a princess when she visited here, and they say when she visited she overheard a footman commenting upon her appearance. He said that she had fat ankles and pigeon toes, and she was so outraged that she never visited Bath again. And they say even when she went past on the Royal train, she insisted that they pull down the blinds so she wouldn't have to gaze upon Bath and Bath wouldn't have to gaze upon her. And the only statue of her in Bath, I don't know if it's a coincidence, her actual robes cover her feet. Just on the right here of style, if you look at the very top, those are actually stone acorns that they've carved, and those are to commemorate the legend of Bladud. And the pillars are the different styles of architecture, the Corinthian and the Ionic and the Doric there. And again you can see the very wide front doors. Just in a moment, number 13, you'll see above the front door what looks like the face of a sun. That's an old fire mark. We'll just see it coming up to the left now. In those days, if you had insurance with a company, they would put their mark on your house. If your house caught fire, they would come and put the fire out for you. This was before they really had fire engines or a public fire service. It's very fine. And these are all now privately owned. You can see the chimneys, the little attic windows, the windows getting larger as you come down, and then the very wide doorways at the bottom. And again, quite a lot of these have got boot scrapers in front of them, just by the front door, a sort of T-shaped metal bar. They are very strict about the outside of these buildings. If you were to buy one, you couldn't alter it in any way. You can pretty well do what you like inside, but outside you've got to maintain this Georgian facade, even to the extent that you couldn't sort of paint your own colour on the front door now. You've got to go along.
This is Bath, right in the centre of town, heading toward the Abbey. Another example of this Georgian architecture that you see here. And there goes our trusty guide with her brolly up, and our group.
Just for a moment, do you want to gather in? I just wanted to stop to give us our bearings, just in case anyone's a bit mithered. Obviously behind me this is Bath Abbey, and what we're going to be doing, folks, is walking just round the corner from here in a moment, which will bring us round to the front of the baths. If you lose your sense of direction at all, remember to stand in front of Bath Abbey where you've got all the building work going on, which is this side of it obviously. But all you're doing when you've got that behind you is you're just crossing straight over the road to the bridge there, and the coach will be parked just there. So you should be fine, and the coach will be back over there at 1:30. It's only really if you get totally lost, head for that because it's a good landmark, and then rather than us running around behind each other, I'll know where to find you. As we walk round there now, American Express is just on the left in the tourist office, so we'll look at it and see if it's open. And then just round the corner we'll be in front of the Abbey, so if you look up you'll see the angels carved in stone there. And then we've got the Roman baths. There are loos in the baths there if you need them straight away. Some of you might want to visit the baths as well. And straight ahead because we've got the area where all the shops and everything like that is, and restaurants and so on.
These are the Roman baths at Bath. The abbey is just to the side of them. The beautiful statue is now ready. Looking up at the dome roof. These are the original Roman baths, which were allowed to fall into disrepair and decay, and they weren't discovered for many hundreds of years. Then in Victoria times they found them and rebuilt the top layer, this sort of mezzanine floor, if you like, with the figurines are Victorian. This is Julius Caesar. Next to him stands Clavius. This is a picture of the baths as they were originally, with a roof over them, so the water would have been clear. Now with the sunlight getting at it, of course it's green. This is the spring that supplies the hot mineral water. It rises at 11,000 million litres a day at 46 degrees centigrade.
Life-size gilded bronze head is of the goddess Sulis Minerva. It was found in 1727 by workmen digging under a nearby street the trench for a sewer. Gilded statues like this one are very rare. It points to the worth and importance of this temple. It would have stood inside the temple, approached only by the priests, whose job it was to tend an eternal flame by whose golden light the statue glowed. Of course, the statue is incomplete. Look closely at her neck, and you'll see where it's been hacked off. Though whether by invading barbarians, or by Christians desecrating what they saw as a pagan idol, we shall never know.
This is the original spring drain, taking the hot water from the spring to the River Avon. The flow is a constant 250,000 gallons a day, and this drain is 2,000 years old. This bridge over the Avon River has a row of shops along either side of it. Unfortunately, we haven't got time to go in and have a look at it today. The toll booth to cross the Severn Bridge into Wales, £7.50 for the bus.
Bridge, just over there.
There's the new bridge that they're putting on.
And this is, as I say, it's the River Severn and then the River Wye, W-Y-E, that we'll be crossing.
to Wales.
So I'm just coming up to the left at the moment. You'll see our first set of road signs. Welsh dragon, which is really the symbol of Wales. And again, they do have their own flag here. It's a green and white field with a red dragon upon it, which I'm sure we'll see flying here and there on our travels. Now, the history of Wales and the story of Wales is really caught up quite a lot with the fact that they always had England as a stronger, more aggressive neighbour. And the series of castles that remain today in Wales, many of which are in ruins, but there are certainly more castle ruins here, I would say, than anywhere else around the United Kingdom.
It's a bit finer this morning. It was pouring yesterday and we couldn't see anything of Swansea, but best I can do this morning is to show you the hotel that we stayed in last night. It's been about the best of the hotels so far. It's very nicely done. This is all we can make out of Swansea on full zoom. I think this suburb is called Glamorgan. And here we are in the little town of Carmarthen in Wales. Not a big town. It's not far from Swansea. And about 30 miles from the ferry where we cross to Ireland at Pembroke. Some tiling in progress on that roof. Interesting to see that there's more underneath than there is exposed, and they're square, not sort of brick-like. Came out for our crossing over to Ireland. We're now on board the ferry at Pembroke, just preparing to leave. In the castle, we're on the way in to watch someone kissing the Blarney Stone. It's not as simple as you might imagine. Through the castle at the moment, up some very narrow steps, all stone steps. This is the family room. You can see Alec standing actually in the old fireplace there. And the Blarney Stone is directly above. Little passages leading off in all directions. This is to the young lady's bedroom, this one. We're almost up now, and here's the group of people that are waiting to do it. They've got to go up that narrow staircase again to get to the top. This is looking down from the top of the castle, which we have finally made. There's where I took those earlier photographs. And that's the town of Blarney in the background. Well known for the woolen mills and the Aran sweaters that they...
There you go, sir. Thanks. Thank you. Ooh.
No, so I want you to straighten your knees straight up, but just ease your head back now, sir. Just ease your head back, take your time up, take your time. Right there, sir. Very good.
The restaurant at Blarney Castle. And the woolen mill shop. All the complex. Well, we haven't had very much chance of filming anything today, but here we go in our hotel at Waterville in County Kerry, and we're in our hotel room and looking out over the sea. Dick, our hard-working bus driver, out there unloading all our cases. Left Waterville this morning and we're heading on our way. Pretty misty. We're continuing on along the Ring of Kerry. This is looking back towards Waterville, where we stayed in our brilliant orange hotel last night. Small holdings down there, very infertile country really. A lot of the little houses were abandoned during the famine at the turn of the century. People haven't gone back to them. The country, of course, is extremely Catholic, and all along the road there's little shrines to Our Lady. Still travelling around the Ring of Kerry. Stopped at a little town called Sneem now. We really are very fond of their brightly coloured buildings. Stopped for a photo shot and everybody gets out and aims all over the place. Great excuse to stretch your legs. Here we are in the centre of Killarney. And there's a couple just setting off on an Irish daunting cart. Killarney's quite a pretty little town. This was our lunch stop today. About the off licence. Well, there's one. Definitely time to put the nose bag on. Didn't see it till it was too late. Where do they get that idea? Their tastes all in their mouth. Oh, last look at Killarney before we move out.
So you've got a lovely news hatch in the middle there.
Bunratty Castle. Fabulous tapestries. This is in the Great Hall of Bunratty Castle. It's the fertility picture over there, or carving. Male figure giving birth. Most important in those days. Beautiful carvings. The Earl's chair where he sat in judgment. And the open fireplace in the middle.
Symbolic German chandelier reflecting two sides of the German people. The mermaid, the fishing side, the emperors, the hunting side. They made their living then mainly from fishing and hunting. Behind me, a fine example of a chapel. That was the private chapel where the family celebrated Mass.
Did you win it?
You can see why she's got that pained expression on her face, can't you?
Well, having the antlers stuck in her backside. Oh. This is the Earl's private living room, and this table here is reputed to have been rescued from one of the ships in the Spanish Armada. Some fireplace. This is the master bedroom. Earl's private chapel is at the end of the living room. Faithful replica of a fisherman's cottage. All the buildings in the folk park now are authentic for 1850 to 1950. Right up until then, they were tied to trade barriers with England and very suppressed, and once they joined the EEC, then markets opened up and Ireland has progressed in great leaps and bounds from that day on. Cottage, which started off the folk park, it was in the way of the extensions to the airport at Shannon, so they shifted it out here to Bunratty Castle grounds and started off a folk park. It shows a typical farmhouse of the period, and the others were added to it at a later date. This is the farm workers' cottage. This is an example of the home of a prosperous farmer. He could afford 4 rooms and an entrance lobby. Some labour-saving devices like a washing machine and a sewing machine. Living exhibits here. Busy making an apple pie. One of our party, George, making himself very much at home. Main bedroom. A bird's eye view of the main living room, and the cook's busy there from the balcony outside the children's bedroom up in the loft. There's the washing machine. The treadle sewing machine.
Oven
The dining room.
No oven cooking.
Don't know how they did that.
Didn't seem to have any.
3 bedrooms in this house and they've all got double beds in. The kids would double up, no doubt. The farmyard, the 2 children that are on our tour, part of a family from Malta. Unbelievable how well behaved those 2 boys are. The area is the reconstruction of a 19th century village. With the bar there, the publican's house, the drapery store. Nice shot of the countryside and Loch Doben as we leave Ennis and head across the country towards Dublin. Cathedral in Dublin. In the centre of Dublin there is a huge park, started off by the Duke of Wellington, I think it was, some earl, no, a viceroy or somebody, 1,000 acres, and he started it off. The main reason was to provide deer and pheasant and game for his guests. Dominating it is a cross which marks the altar where the Pope conducted an outdoor mass here in 1977. Apparently 1 million people attended the mass that day. This is some of the deer. Apparently there's about 500 in the park. There don't appear to be any retaining walls. They probably wouldn't want to go where there's traffic anyway.
Horses on our right hand side, and this is a tidal river, so the level fluctuates throughout the day. It actually rises in Wicklow in the mountains, it floats a little bit around Wicklow and Kildare and then straightens itself out before entering Dublin. It divides Dublin in 2 as well, into north and south. We're on the north bank of the river at the moment. Cross over the river, you're on the south side. And Southsiders here in Dublin always think that they're a little bit more important and a little bit more fashionable than the people who live on the north side. They say they have to get a visa to cross over the river. And they'll tell you that the only reason that they cross over is to get their handbags back.
It's not playing at the moment. They call it the floozy in the jacuzzi. Quite big on statues over here. Rather unique, the golden wall outside the Bank of Ireland. This is the only pedestrian bridge over the Lafitte, and it's called the Halfpenny Bridge because when they first put it in they used to charge half a penny to cross it.
Yes. No, it counts. Some of the folks.
have is a good sense of humour. Would you agree with me? Yes. I'm overcome by her enthusiasm, I tell you that. And we have I wouldn't tell you a word of a lie. I was sitting at the breakfast table recently and herself was out of the kitchen in her see-through negligee. You could see her t-shirt. And she shouts out from the kitchen, "Make man passionate love to me." I said, "Why pick on me?" She said, "I'm boiling an egg and I want to time it." I must tell you, little Murphy, I said to him, what happened to your first wife, Murphy? He said she died at a wishing well. I said, I didn't think those things worked. Poor Mrs. Murphy went to the doctor. Well, she did. Well, she couldn't go last week, she was sick. And while she was sitting in the waiting room, a nun ran out of the doctor's room, now tears running down her face. When she was gone, Mrs. Murphy said, "Doctor, there's a nun out. She's extremely upset, you know." He said, "I know that." He said, "I've just heard that she's pregnant." "Oh my goodness, is she?" "Not at all, but it cured her hiccups." The sisters are great. Give them a round of applause. I know we have quite a few ladies to speak. Listen, gentlemen, if you don't have this convenience at all, so all they come in, and I'll be even better than what you were doing. People like the people always do. That's when it's all the people, hopping in the middle like that, on the middle. And turn up, cross to the wall. Not really easy, but to the top.
Dublin and sailing across to Holyhead in Wales. About a 3-hour crossing.
Connected with the Druids about the island. It's quite an interesting place today in that it's one of the few, I'd say one of the few communities left really in the United Kingdom that still has quite a closed community. They're about 2.5 years ago now. A couple of families moved on to Anglesey from the mainland, and they were said to be quite rough people, and they had some youngsters in the family who very quickly earned a reputation for things like stealing cars and petty theft, breaking into houses and so on. And the people of Anglesey took matters into their own hands. I mean, they didn't have recourse to the law at all. They actually marched these families off the island and refused to allow them to return. So that's just within the last couple of years. So they said they'd never had that sort of thing disturbing life here before, and they weren't going to start now. So they took the law into their own hands.
Side of a hill that they used for quarrying in North Wales. Lots of stone quarries along the side of the road here. We're in the town square at Chester at the moment, looking down towards the Rose, which you'll see shortly.
It's just a unique form of architecture in this country. They don't have it anywhere else. If you wanted to, if you walk that way, you get to the cathedral and just follow the road around and you come out to the end of there where the roads are anyway. So if you wanted to do those.
Much of it as I can get in the camera. It's a lovely old building.
See, I'll tell everyone else what to do. I'm not doing it myself.
This is the entrance to the cathedral. streets are called North Gate or East Gate. This is because the city had a wall all the way around, and these were the various entrances to the city.
Don't forget. Francis Gambia. Zeker nog het los was.
A bit more of Chester Cathedral. Part of the stained glass window at the back of the cathedral. And looking forward up to the altar. Stone wall. This is the moat surrounding the old town. And there's part of the wall up there. And up on top you can actually walk along the wall.
Is it all part machine?
Push now into the Lake District. A lovely shot of Lake Grasmere. It's 10 miles long but only very narrow all the way. A couple of beautiful places on the far side. Wordsworth spent a lot of time and wrote his famous Daffodils poem. It's a lovely setting. And this is where the Wordsworth family have been buried. Beautiful. This is the mountain ash. Got the brown berries on at this time of the year. Sycamore with its winged seeds.
Are you unique?
Beatrice Potter had a lot to do with this area of the country. A very popular area for walking and people that like outdoor pursuits. It's a good example of the dry stone walls. There are, they estimate, 120,000 kilometres of these walls throughout England. They're constructed without using any cement or mortar, and the government feel that it's important that they be retained as it is, but unfortunately a lot of them are falling into disrepair because they're only giving a 30% subsidy now for their maintenance, whereas they used to be given 50%. The local breed of sheep, those two coloured ones, the darker one is the younger one. As they get older, like us, they go grey. Can't remember the name of them at the moment. That white one's just one of the local black faces. And after a nice little stop in Grasmere, it's back onto our coach and away into Scotland. It's a belted Galloway cow or bull. Here's some of the Highland cattle.